Woman pregnant for 10 years delivers a baby that glows in the dark. How did this happen? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. Maria sat by the window of her small, sunlit kitchen, her hands resting gently on her swollen belly. The soft murmur of birds outside offered a faint comfort, but it did little to ease the weariness that had settled deep within her. She was 35 now, but her pregnancy had started a decade earlier when she was just 25. A decade of waiting, of unanswered questions, and of hope that one day she would hold her baby in her arms. Her husband, Daniel, walked in with a steaming cup of tea. "You didn't sleep again, did you?" he asked gently, placing the cup in front of her. Maria shook her head. "The dreams came back," she said softly. "The light, the voices. I don't understand any of it." Daniel sighed, pulling up a chair beside her. He had been her rock through these years of uncertainty, but even his patience had been tested by the sheer strangeness of their situation. "We'll figure it out," he said. "We always do." Maria's pregnancy had baffled doctors from the very beginning. When she first visited her local clinic, excited to confirm the news, the ultrasound had revealed a perfectly formed fetus. But as the months turned into years, the baby's development seemed to defy all logic. The fetus remained in a stable state, showing no signs of growth but also no signs of distress. By the time the third year rolled around, Maria had become a medical anomaly. Specialists from across the country flocked to study her case, conducting tests and scans that yielded little more than speculation. Was it a rare genetic condition? A 1 in a billion phenomenon? No one could say for sure. Yet despite the uncertainty, Maria's maternal instincts never wavered. "I can feel him," she told the doctors during one appointment. "He's alive. He's just waiting." As the years passed, Maria's life became a delicate balance of hope and frustration. The townspeople whispered about her wherever she went, their words a mix of wonder and judgment. "She's cursed," one neighbor would say. "No, it's a miracle," another would argue. The attention was overwhelming at times, but Maria chose to focus on the love she felt for the baby she carried. She would often sit alone in the nursery she had prepared, humming lullabies and imagining the day she would finally hold her child. Strange things began happening around the 6th year of her pregnancy. It started subtly, an unusual warmth radiating from her belly at night, a faint glow that would light up the darkened room. At first, Maria thought she was imagining it, but Daniel saw it too. "It's like he's glowing," Daniel whispered one evening as they lay in bed, the soft light illuminating their faces. "What does it mean?" "I don't know," Maria replied, her voice trembling. "But I think it's a sign." Doctors were equally perplexed when Maria described the phenomenon during her next appointment. They conducted more tests, but the results were inconclusive. One doctor suggested it might be bioluminescence, a rare, naturally occurring phenomenon, but even that explanation felt inadequate. "Whatever it is," Maria said firmly, "it's not hurting him." "I know it." The medical community remained divided, and Maria became a subject of heated debates in scientific journals. But for her, the glow was a source of comfort, a reminder that her baby was still with her, waiting for the right moment to enter the world. As Maria's pregnancy entered its 8th year, her life became even more surreal. The glowing episodes became more frequent, to the point where Maria's belly would softly illuminate the room each night like a small lantern. Daniel began jokingly calling her their guiding light, but deep down, the couple was filled with equal parts awe and apprehension. Maria started noticing other odd occurrences as well. Objects in her home, especially those close to her, would seem to hum faintly or emit a barely perceptible vibration. Plants in the house, particularly those near her belly, seemed to thrive unnaturally well, their leaves lush and vibrant as if drawn to the energy radiating from her. These small phenomena only deepened the mystery surrounding her pregnancy. "It's like he's communicating with the world," Maria told Daniel one evening as they sat on the couch, the soft glow of her belly casting shadows across the room. "Like he's alive in a way we don't understand." Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Maybe he's preparing," he said thoughtfully. "Waiting for the right time." Maria's doctors, still perplexed by the glowing and other unexplainable phenomena, escalated her case to a national level. Soon, renowned specialists and even researchers from international institutes became involved. Maria and Daniel frequently traveled to hospitals and labs, where teams of scientists conducted tests, ran scans, and studied her condition from every possible angle. One particularly intense session involved using advanced imaging to map the baby's neural activity. To the doctor's astonishment, the scans showed something extraordinary. The baby's brain waves were active, far more advanced than expected for a fetus. This level of brain activity is something we typically see in newborns, not in utero, one doctor explained, shaking his head in disbelief. It's as if this child is aware of its surroundings, aware of you. Maria's eyes welled up with tears. "I told you he's alive," she whispered. "I can feel him. He knows me." Despite this breakthrough, the doctors were no closer to understanding how or why Maria's pregnancy had persisted for so long. The case remained shrouded in mystery, with scientists proposing increasingly outlandish theories that ranged from rare genetic mutations to celestial phenomena. Some even speculated that Maria's pregnancy was a once-in-a-millennium event that defied all known biological processes. News of Maria's case began to spread beyond the medical community, drawing the attention of journalists, bloggers, and even filmmakers. Her small town, once a quiet and unassuming place, became a hub of activity as reporters and camera crews descended in droves. The media dubbed Maria the Eternal Mother, a title that made her cringe but also reflected the public's fascination with her story. Strangers sent letters and gifts, some offering prayers and blessings, while others made bizarre claims about cosmic destinies and prophecies. The constant attention was overwhelming, but Maria tried to focus on the love she felt for her unborn child. "Let them talk," she told Daniel. "None of it matters as long as he's safe." However, not all the attention was positive. Some people in the town began to view Maria with suspicion, their whispers taking on a more sinister tone. "It's unnatural," one neighbor muttered. "There's something wrong with that baby." Others went even further, spreading rumors that Maria was cursed or that her child was some kind of harbinger of doom. The negativity weighed heavily on her, but she refused to let it break her spirit. "I know the truth," Maria told herself during moments of doubt. "And I won't let anyone take that away from me." One night, as Maria lay in bed, she was startled awake by a sharp, glowing pulse from her belly. The light was brighter than it had ever been before, filling the room with an almost otherworldly radiance. Maria gasped, clutching her stomach as a strange warmth spread through her body. "Daniel," she called out, her voice trembling. "Something's happening." Daniel rushed to her side, his eyes widening as he took in the sight before him. The glow from Maria's belly was almost blinding now, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. "Is it time?" he asked, panic and excitement mingling in his voice. Maria shook her head, her breathing shallow. "I don't know. Feels different?" The glow gradually subsided, leaving the room in darkness once again. But the moment lingered in Maria's mind, filling her with a sense of anticipation she couldn't quite explain. Over the next few weeks, the glowing pulses became more frequent and intense, as if the baby were building up to something monumental. Maria found herself both exhilarated and terrified, unsure of what to expect. "I think he's getting ready," she told Daniel one morning, her voice filled with quiet certainty. "I think it's almost time." Daniel nodded, his expression serious. "Then we need to be ready too." The day finally arrived in the 10th year of Maria's pregnancy. It started like any other, with Maria going about her routine and trying to ignore the whispers of anticipation that had become a constant presence in her mind. But by mid-afternoon, she felt the first sharp pang of labor, a sensation she had almost given up hope of ever experiencing. "It's happening," she whispered to Daniel, clutching his arm as another wave of pain coursed through her. "He's coming." Daniel wasted no time, helping Maria to the car and racing to the hospital. By the time they arrived, Maria's contractions were coming fast and strong, her body seemingly making up for lost time. The delivery room was a hive of activity as doctors and nurses prepared for what they knew would be a historic moment. The air was thick with tension and awe, the medical staff keenly aware that they were about to witness something unprecedented. Maria focused on her breathing, gripping Daniel's hand tightly as the contractions grew more intense. The glow from her belly had returned, bathing the room in a soft, ethereal light that seemed to calm everyone present. "You're doing great, Maria," one of the nurses said, her voice gentle but steady. "Just a little more." Maria nodded, summoning every ounce of strength she had. She could feel the baby moving, finally ready to enter the world after a decade of waiting. The delivery room was electric with anticipation as Maria entered the final stages of labor. The glow from her belly intensified with each contraction, casting a surreal light that seemed to mesmerize everyone present. Even the seasoned doctors, who had seen countless births, couldn't hide their awe. "Just one more push, Maria," the lead obstetrician said, his voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of wonder. "You're almost there." Maria gritted her teeth, sweat pouring down her face as she gave one final, powerful push. A collective gasp filled the room as the baby emerged, its entire body radiating a soft, otherworldly glow. The light was gentle yet vibrant, illuminating the faces of the stunned medical team. "It's glowing," one of the nurses whispered, her voice trembling. "The baby is glowing." The obstetrician held the newborn up, his hands steady despite the overwhelming sense of disbelief. "It's a boy," he announced, his words breaking through the stunned silence. Maria collapsed back onto the bed, her exhaustion giving way to a wave of relief and joy. "My baby," she murmured, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My beautiful boy." The baby's glow pulsed softly, like a heartbeat, as the nurse gently cleaned him and wrapped him in a blanket. When she placed him in Maria's arms, the glow seemed to intensify, illuminating Maria's face as she gazed down at her son. "He's perfect," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely perfect." Daniel stood by her side, his own tears falling freely as he reached out to touch the baby's tiny hand. "He's incredible," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never seen anything like this." The glow seemed to respond to their touch, becoming warmer and more vibrant. The medical staff watched in awe, their initial shock giving way to a sense of reverence. This was no ordinary baby, this was something extraordinary. News of the glowing baby spread rapidly, even before Maria had left the hospital. A nurse, unable to contain her excitement, snapped a photo and shared it with a friend, who in turn shared it online. Within hours, the image had gone viral, capturing the attention of people around the world. By the time Maria and her baby were ready to go home, the hospital was surrounded by reporters, scientists, and curious onlookers. Cameras flashed and questions were shouted as Maria and Daniel carefully made their way to the car, shielding their son from the commotion. "How does it feel to be the mother of a miracle?" one reporter called out. "Will you let scientists study him?" another asked. Maria ignored the questions, her focus solely on her child. She could feel his tiny body nestled against hers, the warmth of his glow a comforting reminder of the love they shared. Back at home, Maria and Daniel tried to adjust to their new reality. Their once quiet life had been turned upside down, with the world's eyes now firmly fixed on their family. Calls flooded in from journalists, scientists, and even spiritual leaders, each eager to learn more about the glowing baby. "We need to set boundaries," Daniel said one evening as he sifted through the endless stream of emails and voicemails. "We can't let them treat him like a science experiment." Maria nodded, cradling her son in her arms. "He's not a curiosity," she said firmly. "He's our child. And we'll do whatever it takes to protect him." Despite their efforts to maintain privacy, the world's fascination with the glowing baby only grew. Experts speculated about the cause of his glow, offering theories that ranged from genetic mutations to bioluminescence to divine intervention. Some even suggested that he might be the next step in human evolution, a possibility that sparked both excitement and fear. Meanwhile, Maria began to notice other unique traits in her son. His glow wasn't just a physical phenomenon, it seemed to have an emotional quality as well. When Maria held him close, the light would become softer, more soothing, as if reflecting the bond they shared. When Daniel played with him, the glow would brighten, filling the room with a sense of joy. But it wasn't just the family who felt the baby's impact. Visitors to their home often remarked on how calm and peaceful they felt in his presence. One neighbor, who had been struggling with anxiety, claimed that simply holding the baby for a few minutes had brought her a sense of clarity and relief. "There's something special about him," the neighbor told Maria, her eyes wide with wonder. "He's not like other babies." Maria smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "I know," she said. "He's a gift." As the weeks turned into months, Maria and Daniel faced increasing pressure from the outside world. Scientists and research institutions offered large sums of money in exchange for the opportunity to study the baby. Some were polite and respectful in their requests, while others were more aggressive, insisting that the child's unique traits could hold the key to groundbreaking discoveries. Maria refused every offer. "He's not a lab specimen," she told one particularly persistent scientist over the phone. "He's a person. And I won't let anyone treat him otherwise." The scientist sighed, clearly frustrated. "Mrs. Harper, you have to understand, the potential here is enormous. Your son could revolutionize our understanding of human biology." Maria's grip on the phone tightened. "My son is not a tool for your experiments," she said firmly. "And this conversation is over." She hung up, her heart pounding. She knew she had made the right decision, but the constant pressure was beginning to wear on her. The breaking point came when a group of reporters camped outside their home managed to capture footage of the baby glowing through the living room window. The video quickly went viral, sparking a renewed frenzy of interest and speculation. "We can't live like this," Daniel said, pacing the kitchen as Maria tried to soothe their crying child. "They're treating us like we're some kind of sideshow." Maria nodded, her resolve hardening. "We need help," she said. "Someone who can protect us, and him." Maria and Daniel decided to reach out to trusted allies who could help them navigate their new reality. Among them was Dr. Elena Morales, one of the few medical professionals who had shown genuine compassion and respect during Maria's pregnancy. Dr. Morales was a pediatrician and researcher with a reputation for balancing science with humanity, and Maria trusted her implicitly. When Maria called to explain the situation, Dr. Morales listened carefully, her concern evident in her voice. "You've been through so much already," she said. "The last thing you need is to feel like you're under siege. I'll help in any way I can." Dr. Morales arrived at their home the next day, her demeanor calm and reassuring despite the media circus outside. She examined the baby with the same care and respect she had shown during Maria's pregnancy, marveling at his glow but never treating him like a specimen. "He's healthy and thriving," she said after completing her examination. "There's no reason to subject him to endless tests or studies. What he needs most right now is a safe, loving environment." Maria felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, Elena," she said, her voice trembling with gratitude. "That's all we've ever wanted." With Dr. Morales's help, Maria and Daniel began to establish clear boundaries. Dr. Morales acted as their intermediary, fielding requests from scientists and journalists and ensuring that only those with respectful intentions were given access to the family. She also worked with local authorities to address the constant presence of reporters outside their home, securing a court order to keep them at a safe distance. Meanwhile, Maria and Daniel focused on creating a sense of normalcy for their son. They named him Lucas, a name that meant light, and spent their days marveling at his every milestone. Despite his extraordinary glow, Lucas was in many ways just like any other baby, with a contagious laugh, a curious nature, and an unbreakable bond with his parents. But there was no denying that Lucas was special. His glow continued to have a profound effect on those around him, bringing a sense of calm and joy that defied explanation. Visitors to the house often left feeling inexplicably uplifted, as if Lucas's presence had touched something deep within them. Word of Lucas's unique abilities began to spread, drawing the attention of spiritual leaders from various faiths. Some saw him as a sign of divine intervention, a child sent to bring light and hope to a troubled world. Others were more skeptical, questioning whether his glow was truly a blessing or simply a scientific anomaly. Maria and Daniel were careful about whom they allowed into their home, wary of those who might exploit Lucas for their own agendas. But one visitor stood out, a gentle, elderly monk named Brother Elias, who had traveled hundreds of miles to meet Lucas after hearing about him from a friend. Brother Elias arrived with nothing more than a small satchel and a kind smile. He greeted Maria and Daniel with warmth and humility, asking nothing of them but the chance to sit quietly with Lucas. As Maria handed Lucas to him, she noticed how the baby's glow seemed to soften, wrapping Brother Elias in a warm, golden light. The monk closed his eyes, a serene expression spreading across his face. "He is a gift," Brother Elias said after a long silence, his voice filled with reverence. "Not just to you but to all of us. He carries a light that reminds us of the goodness we are capable of." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "We've always felt that," she said. "But hearing you say it makes it feel real." Brother Elias stayed for several hours, sharing stories and offering words of wisdom. When he left, Maria and Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. They knew that Lucas's glow was more than just a physical phenomenon. It was a symbol of hope and connection. As Lucas grew, his abilities became more apparent. His glow seemed to respond to the emotions of those around him, growing brighter in moments of joy and dimming when someone was upset or in pain. Maria began to notice that people who spent time with Lucas often experienced unexpected moments of clarity or healing. One day, a neighbor named Clara visited Maria to drop off some homemade cookies. Clara had been struggling with chronic pain for years, a condition that left her exhausted and discouraged. When she picked Lucas up, she gasped as his glow seemed to envelop her. "It's like the pain is melting away," Clara said, her voice filled with wonder. "I don't know how to explain it, but I feel lighter." Maria watched in amazement as Clara's usually tense shoulders relaxed, her face softening with relief. "Lucas has that effect on people," she said with a smile. "He's special." Clara left the house that day feeling more hopeful than she had in years, and word of her experience spread quickly. Soon, more neighbors began visiting Maria, each leaving with their own story of how Lucas had touched their lives. But not everyone viewed Lucas's abilities with wonder. As the world's fascination with him grew, so too did the number of people who sought to exploit him. One day, Maria received an unsettling call from a representative of a powerful pharmaceutical company. "Mrs. Harper," the man said, his tone smooth and persuasive, "we believe your son's unique traits could hold the key to groundbreaking medical advancements. With your permission, we'd like to conduct a series of studies to better understand his glow." Maria's grip on the phone tightened. "My son is not a test subject," she said firmly. "He's a child." The man's tone remained calm, but his words took on a sharper edge. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Mrs. Harper. Think of the lives we could save, the breakthroughs we could achieve. Surely you understand the responsibility you have." Maria's heart pounded with anger and fear. "My responsibility is to protect my son," she said. "And I won't let anyone take that away from me." She hung up, her hands trembling. As she held Lucas close, she made a silent vow to shield him from anyone who saw him as a commodity rather than a person. The pressure on the family continued to mount, culminating in a late-night knock on their door. Daniel opened it to find a group of men in suits, their expressions unreadable. "We're representatives from the federal government," one of them said, holding up a badge. "We need to speak with you about your son." Maria and Daniel exchanged a tense glance, their instincts screaming that something wasn't right. "What do you want with him?" Daniel asked, his voice guarded. "We believe his abilities could have significant implications for national security," the man said. "We're prepared to offer your family full protection and compensation in exchange for your cooperation." Maria stepped forward, her voice trembling with fury. "He's a baby," she said. "Not a weapon, not a tool. He's our son, and you have no right to take him from us." The men hesitated, clearly taken aback by her intensity. "We understand your concerns," the leader said carefully. "But this isn't just about your family, it's about the greater good." Maria's eyes blazed. "The greater good doesn't mean sacrificing my child," she said. "Now get off my property before I call the police." The men exchanged looks before turning to leave, their departure a temporary relief but a stark reminder of the challenges ahead. The encounter with the government officials left Maria and Daniel shaken. The reality of their situation was sinking in. Lucas's extraordinary gift had made him a target. As they sat together in the living room that night, Lucas nestled in Maria's arms. They both knew they needed to take action to protect their son. "We can't keep living like this," Daniel said, his voice heavy with worry. "They won't stop coming after him. We need a plan." Maria nodded, her eyes fixed on Lucas's glowing face. "We need to make sure he's safe no matter what," she said. "But how do we do that when the whole world is watching?" Daniel reached out and took her hand. "We'll figure it out," he said. "We always do." The next morning, Maria called Dr. Morales, who had become not only their trusted advisor but also a close friend. When Maria explained what had happened with the government officials, Dr. Morales was alarmed but not surprised. "I was afraid something like this might happen," she said. "People fear what they don't understand, and Lucas is unlike anything we've ever seen. But I have an idea that might help." Dr. Morales proposed reaching out to a private organization she had worked with in the past, a foundation dedicated to protecting individuals with unique abilities or circumstances. The foundation, called the Haven Initiative, specialized in creating safe environments away from public scrutiny. "They can provide the security and privacy you need," Dr. Morales said. "But it's a big decision. You'd have to leave your home, maybe even your town." Maria and Daniel exchanged a look. The idea of uprooting their lives was daunting, but they knew it might be their only option. "Do you trust them?" Maria asked. "With my life," Dr. Morales replied. After days of deliberation, Maria and Daniel decided to move forward with the Haven Initiative. Representatives from the organization visited their home, assuring them that Lucas's safety and well-being would be their top priorities. "We've dealt with situations like this before," one of the representatives said. "We have secure facilities where your family can live peacefully, away from prying eyes. Lucas will have the freedom to grow and thrive without interference." Maria felt a pang of sadness as she looked around their home. This was where she had dreamed of raising Lucas, where she had imagined watching him take his first steps and say his first words. But now, she realized that staying meant putting him at risk. "We'll do it," she said finally, her voice resolute. "We'll go." The move was a whirlwind of activity. The Haven Initiative handled everything, from arranging transportation to securing a new home for the family. Within a week, Maria, Daniel, and Lucas were on their way to a secluded compound in the mountains, where they would be surrounded by nature and shielded from the outside world. The house they were given was cozy and welcoming, with large windows that let in plenty of sunlight and a spacious yard where Lucas could play as he grew. For the first time in months, Maria and Daniel felt a sense of peace. "This feels right," Daniel said as he stood on the porch, looking out at the rolling hills. "This is where we're supposed to be." Maria smiled, cradling Lucas in her arms. His glow was soft and steady, a comforting presence in the quiet of their new home. "It's beautiful," she said. "I think Lucas will love it here." As the days turned into weeks, the family settled into their new routine. The Haven Initiative provided everything they needed, from groceries to medical care, and the staff was discreet and respectful. Maria and Daniel were finally able to relax, focusing on raising Lucas without the constant fear of intrusion. Lucas thrived in the new environment. He loved the outdoors, his glow seeming to brighten whenever he was surrounded by nature. Maria often took him for walks in the forest, marveling at how the trees seemed to bend slightly toward him, as if drawn to his light. "He's connected to the world in a way we can't fully understand," Maria told Daniel one evening as they watched Lucas crawl across the living room floor. "It's like he belongs to something bigger than us." Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe that's why he came to us," he said, "to remind us of what's possible." Despite their newfound peace, Maria and Daniel knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. The world hadn't forgotten about Lucas, and rumors about his whereabouts continued to circulate. Maria decided it was time to address the situation head-on, but on her own terms. With the help of the Haven Initiative, Maria arranged for a carefully controlled interview with a trusted journalist. The interview would allow her to share Lucas's story while setting clear boundaries about his privacy. During the interview, Maria spoke candidly about her journey, the decade-long pregnancy, the miraculous birth, and the challenges of raising a child who was both extraordinary and deeply human. "Lucas is a gift," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "But he's also just a baby. He deserves to grow up in a world that sees him for who he is, not for what he can do. When asked about the glowing, Maria smiled. It's part of who he is, she said, but it doesn't define him. Lucas is more than his glow. He's curious, loving, and full of joy. That's what matters most to us. The interview aired a week later, drawing millions of viewers from around the world. Maria's heartfelt words resonated with people, sparking a wave of support for the family. Letters and messages poured in, filled with encouragement and admiration for Maria's courage. But not everyone was satisfied. Some continued to demand access to Lucas, insisting that his abilities should be studied for the greater good. Maria stood firm, refusing to let anyone compromise her son's safety. He's not here to save the world, she said in a follow-up statement. He's here to live his life, and that's what we intend to let him do. As the months passed, the media frenzy began to fade, and life at the Haven became more stable. Lucas continued to grow, his glow becoming a constant source of light, both literally and figuratively, for everyone around him. Maria and Daniel watched with pride as their son took his first steps, his tiny feet glowing with each stride. They listened in awe as he spoke his first words, his voice filled with the same warmth that radiated from his body. For the first time in years, they felt truly at peace. Lucas was safe, loved, and thriving, and that was all that mattered. As Lucas grew, his glow became an integral part of the family's life. To Maria and Daniel, it was no longer something extraordinary, it was simply a part of who Lucas was. Yet, his light continued to touch the lives of those around him in ways that were both profound and unexpected. One evening, Maria sat on the porch with Lucas in her lap, watching the sun set over the mountains. The fading light mingled with Lucas's glow, creating a beautiful, ethereal effect. As the world outside grew darker, Lucas's light seemed to shine brighter, filling the space around them with warmth and peace. "Do you think he'll always glow like this?" Maria asked Daniel, who was sitting beside her. "I don't know," Daniel replied, his voice soft. "But even if he doesn't, he'll always be special." Maria smiled, kissing Lucas's forehead. "He's already changed so much, for us, and for everyone who's met him." The quiet life they had built at the Haven was occasionally interrupted by visits from those who had been deeply impacted by Lucas's presence. People traveled from far and wide, hoping for a chance to meet the boy who had brought so much light into the world, both figuratively and literally. One day, an elderly man named Mr. Hargrove arrived at their doorstep. He was frail and moved with the help of a cane, but his eyes were bright with determination. "I had to come," he said, his voice trembling. "I saw the interview and I needed to see him." Maria hesitated for a moment, but something about the man's sincerity put her at ease. She invited him inside, where Lucas was playing on the living room floor, his glow casting soft shadows on the walls. As soon as Mr. Hargrove saw Lucas, tears filled his eyes. "He's more beautiful than I imagined," he said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for letting me meet him." Lucas, as if sensing the man's emotions, crawled over to him and placed a tiny, glowing hand on his knee. The light enveloped Mr. Hargrove, who closed his eyes and let out a deep, shuddering breath. "I feel lighter," he whispered. "Like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying has been lifted." Maria watched the scene unfold, her heart swelling with emotion. Moments like this reminded her of the profound impact Lucas had on people's lives, even in the simplest of interactions. As Lucas approached his second birthday, Maria and Daniel began to notice changes in his glow. It was no longer just a steady light. It seemed to shift and adapt, responding to the emotions of those around him. When someone was happy, Lucas's glow would brighten and take on a golden hue. When someone was sad, it would soften, becoming a gentle, soothing blue. "It's like he can feel what people need," Maria said one evening as she watched Lucas play with a group of children at the Haven. "And his light gives it to them?" Daniel nodded, his eyes fixed on their son. "He's a healer in his own way," he said. "Not just physically, but emotionally." Lucas's abilities continued to draw attention, even from afar. One day, Maria received a letter from a renowned scientist, Dr. Isaac Patel, who had been following their story since Lucas's birth. Unlike others who had sought to study Lucas for their own gain, Dr. Patel's letter was filled with humility and genuine curiosity. "I have no intention of disrupting your lives," he wrote. "But if there's ever a time when you feel comfortable sharing more about Lucas's abilities, I would be honored to learn from him, not for personal or scientific glory, but to better understand the beauty and complexity of life itself." Maria was touched by the letter and decided to respond. While she made it clear that Lucas's privacy remained her top priority, she expressed her appreciation for Dr. Patel's respectful approach. Over time, the two began exchanging letters, discussing topics ranging from Lucas's unique traits to broader questions about humanity and connection. As Lucas grew older, Maria and Daniel faced new challenges. How would they explain his glow to him? How would he feel about being different? And how could they prepare him for a world that might not always understand or accept him? One evening, as Lucas lay in bed, Maria sat beside him, stroking his hair. "Lucas," she said softly, "do you know why you glow?" Lucas looked up at her with wide, curious eyes. "No, Mama." "Why?" Maria smiled, her heart aching with love. "Because you're special," she said. "You have a light inside you that helps people feel better. It's a gift and it's something to be proud of." Lucas nodded thoughtfully, his glow softening as he drifted off to sleep. Maria sat with him for a long time, her mind filled with both hope and worry for the future. When Lucas turned 5, Maria and Daniel decided it was time for him to attend school. The Haven had its own small schoolhouse, where children with unique circumstances could learn in a supportive environment. Lucas was nervous at first, but he quickly made friends, his glow a source of fascination and comfort for his classmates. One day, Lucas came home from school with a drawing he had made. It showed a glowing figure standing in the middle of a dark forest, surrounded by smaller figures holding hands. "What's this?" Maria asked, admiring the vibrant colors. "It's me," Lucas said proudly. "I'm helping people find their way." Maria's eyes filled with tears as she hugged her son. "You already do that, Lucas," she said. "Every single day." As the years went by, Lucas's glow became a symbol of hope for everyone who met him. While Maria and Daniel continued to protect his privacy, they also allowed him to share his light with the world in small, meaningful ways. Lucas volunteered at the Haven, visiting elderly residents and comforting children who were struggling. His presence brought a sense of peace and joy that words could never fully capture. But through it all, Maria and Daniel remained his anchors, ensuring that he never felt defined solely by his glow. To them, Lucas was not just a symbol or a miracle, he was their son, a boy with a heart as bright as his light. One evening, as the family sat together on the porch, Lucas, now a teenager, he turned to his parents with a question. "Why do you think I glow?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Maria and Daniel exchanged a look, their love for their son shining as brightly as his light. "Maybe it's to remind us of what really matters," Maria said. "That even in the darkest times, there's always a light to guide us." Lucas smiled, his glow radiating warmth and love. "I think you're my light," he said. "Both of you." As the sun set over the mountains, Lucas's glow illuminated the world around them, a beacon of hope and love that would continue to shine for years to come.